What is going on, boys and girls? Welcome once again to the Bass Kayak and Beers podcast on the Paddle and Fin Network. Remember, you can follow me on their Bass Kayak and Beers in Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Um, I'm recording 2 episodes today. So my intro, if it sounds familiar, this intro from next week's episode, I apologize. I usually try to give you a rundown, but I'm going on vacation to Puerto Rico. Going to visit my parents, maybe do some kayak fishing. So I had to record two podcasts today. But anyways, got a YouTube channel going on. It's been a little bit of a struggle putting content, but the first video is out. If you want to go check it out, if you like it, share it, like it, subscribe. If you like it, if you don't like it, I don't blame you. It's probably crappy anyways. But I like what I did with the video, and it's gonna have a little bit of a podcast mentality. I'm gonna have two series running if I can, and doing content creation is a lot harder than honestly I anticipated. But basically, it's gonna be a series called The Real Life, which is gonna be me fishing with accomplished or talented kayak angler and kind of learning from their learning from them, what's their go-to baits and their techniques and all that. So it's not going to be about me fishing, but more about the guest that I'm going to be fishing with and learning from them. And at the end of each video we'll have a sit down where we crack open a beer and kind of run through what we did, what we learned, and how we figured it out and stuff like that. So kind of have entertainment and information at the same time, not just from my point of view, but the point of view of the whoever I'm fishing with. Other than that, when I do either a national trail or a local regional trail here in Texas, I'm gonna get into the habit of recording that and putting out videos for that too. So again, if you want to go ahead, check it out. It's gonna be on the Bass Kayak and Beers on YouTube. Remember, you can also follow us on Paddle and Fin in Facebook, Instagram, and also YouTube if you prefer to watch us on YouTube and Waypoints. We're also on Waypoints. So, anyways, kind of last minute guest. Like I said, I had to record 2 episodes in one day. So Brian Schiller, the big boss, the CEO, the head of Paddle and Fin, the founder of Paddle and Fin, is going to join me today, and we're just going to have a fun conversation about kayak fishing, tournament fishing. So honestly, it's not going to be any bashing, but we are going to talk about kind of like the highs of the tournament fishing so far in this year. I know it's early in the year, and kind of like the lows, and kind of like an overall state of what the tournament scene is shaping up at the start of this 2022 season. There is obviously going to be some comparisons between one trail and the other one. Please keep in mind, we're not telling you to fish one or one is better than the other. That's really is like looking at a painting. If you like the painting, it's your favorite painting, you're going to like it. Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks about it. Tournament trails are the same thing. If you like the Hobie BOS and you like to fish and that's your favorite trail, you should fish it. If you like the Bassmaster, if you like the All American Bass Kayak Series or the KBF, we're just here to talk about what things we are seeing, what they're trending, and what's trending upward and what's trending downward, and that's it. No trash talking, no unfavorable comparisons from one or the other. Just kind of like the state of tournament fishing. Other than that, we'll just talk about some other stuff. We'll see where it goes. So I'm going to go to a quick commercial. Before we do, go check out my sponsor, Douglas Outdoors, douglasoutdoors.com. Check out the full lineup of LRS, X-Matrix, and fly fishing rods. Here we go. Mr. Brian Schiller, the big boss, the CEO, founding father.
That's me cracking a cup of coffee.
Nice. You a heavy coffee drinker?
Oh yeah, dude. I drink way too much coffee. Way too much coffee.
Dude, you have to with all the work. I don't think people just see you on Thursday, but us that the Paddle and Fin family, everybody that's in the Paddle and Fin, know how much you work your butt off, man. I can't imagine you going through your day with at least 3 or 4 cups of like strong
coffee. Try like 2 pots.
Really?
It's bad, dude. It's bad. It's quite a bit of caffeine running through these veins. Trying to figure out a way to get like a coffee IV, just carry around a bag of coffee, inject it into the bloodstream.
You know what my wife introduced me to chocolate covered coffee beans. That's
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
those
yeah.
are good, man. I
Yeah.
I went to Starbucks one day and I was at work and ordered my typical double shot espresso, and then I ordered this chocolate coffee beans. I thought it was just chocolate drops. I didn't know there were like coffee beans in them.
Oh yeah, yeah,
And I started eating them, dude. I almost had a heart attack that day.
yeah.
Oh my god! I was like, "Jeez, what did I get myself into?" So, should definitely try that,
Yeah, awake all night, like staring at the walls, watching the
dude.
paint peel. Like
It was bad. I was like, almost had a heart attack.
yeah, it's I call it my go-go juice. You do two shots. Normally, I'm three or four, man.
Well, I'll tell
So
you what. Since I'm going to Puerto Rico tomorrow, when I come back, I'll bring you a espresso. You
nice.
grind your own coffee or no?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
You do?
Fresh ground, dude. It's the only way to go.
Okay. So I'll get you the bag of beans, not just
Oh
the
yeah,
grounded coffee. All right,
oh
cool.
yeah, yeah. I'm game. I'm
All
game.
right. Coffee's a big deal over there. So, anyways, I think like the last time I went to Puerto Rico, I took my wife to the coffee festival. We have fun.
Nice, nice.
It's fun.
Oh, they got like a festival with all the roasters and stuff, like coffee
They
roasters and
now it's
stuff.
more of a festival, and it's not really centered around coffee as much as it used to be. Back then, it was just to be all about coffee. Now it's more of a just kind of like country life in Puerto Rico.
Oh, okay.
You know, and a whole bunch of interesting stuff. But yeah, it has that like the homecoming queen thing parade, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty
That's
cool.
awesome.
Yeah,
Nice,
it's funny. Yeah.
nice.
So, anyways, what's up with you? What's going on?
Just
What's new
living the
in your
dream,
paddle
man.
operations?
Just living the dream, staying busy, getting hyped up for Dale Hollow in a couple weeks, and just putting all the final touches on that and getting that ready to go, man.
Yeah, man. Let's tell our audience who's if you haven't heard about the Dale Hollow, you're probably leaving or under a rock.
Yeah,
But really
yeah.
cool.
It's an event we do every year. Well, we started it what 2 years ago, I think.
Mm.
Yeah, I think 2 years now. But we do it every year. The first time was in the fall, I believe, and now we're doing it in the spring. Um, it's usually right around the first or second week of April. This year, it's April 2nd and 3rd, and it's a little tournament get together. We work with the folks at Eastport Marina, which are really cool folks. They love the kayak fishing community. They even they sell new canoe, and they were selling vibe kayaks, but I think they stopped doing that. And then they sell the boat inflatable kayaks and stand up paddle boards and stuff. But and they got a shop full of paddles and accessories and things like that. But they really took on to the kayak fishing community, and we work with them every year. They have a the marina, which is on the shores of Dale Hollow Lake, but right up the hill from the marina, they own a 90-acre. They call it the farm, and they got this beautiful venue there that they usually rent out for weddings and stuff. And we hold all our awards and meetings and stuff there, and they allow us to use that facility, which is pretty phenomenal. I remember last year there was a guy like came to the awards and he's like, "This is the nicest place I've ever been in for a fishing tournament. There's a chandelier hanging in the middle of the room."
Sounds like Ryan
So
Mifford.
no, it wasn't Milford. It was just some guy that came down and fished the event, but it's a lot of fun, man. It's a 2-day event. It's pretty laid back. Obviously there's some competitiveness going on, but it's an event we created for anglers by anglers, I guess you would say. Like it's hosted on Tourney X, but we don't take any Tourney X fees out of um, your tournament fees, along with PayPal fees. We get that covered in other ways, so it's 100+% payback. We got some pretty cool sponsors this year and in previous years. Like this year, Douglas Rods is giving a
Nice.
rod for each day's big bass. And then we got a third one that we'll give out at the awards ceremony. Bioenno Power sent a box full of battery goodies.
Nice.
Torpedo. We've always had Torpedo, so we got some Torpedo gift cards. Who else? Who else? I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. This is bad. Yak Gadget. Yak Gadget tosses some stuff in. Pelican. Cases, coolers, and lighting. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, we got. Oh man, sorry, I'm pulling all this stuff off the top of my head. I should have had it already. Save Your Outdoors, the rod floats, they're sending some stuff. Plus, we're working together with 2 local clubs as well in Tennessee, Central Tennessee Kayak Anglers and the Cumberland Kayak Trail. So if you fish those clubs, like those guys will get AOI points for their club. Plus they're, fishing for money in our event. And it's just going to be an all around good time, man. Eastport has got lodging specials. They're renting out rooms on their luxury houseboats, $50 a night. And their restaurant has been rebranded and reopening when we get down there, so they're going to have a bunch of food specials and stuff like that. We got food at check-in on after day 1, so it's going to be a good time. Live music, all that good stuff, man. We make it a big event, and yeah, man. If anybody's interested, get signed up on Tourney X. It's $80 is the entry fee, and just going to be an overall good time. I mean, we got Shane Lamont coming out from California. We got guys coming
Shane.
from Illinois, Wisconsin, Ohio. Big crew coming from West Virginia,
Nice.
Tennessee. I forget where else, but there's a bunch of guys signed up already. So we're expecting probably right around 100 anglers when it's all said and done.
Nice.
So yeah, should be a
Big
good
of
time.
Shane. Shane representing California, doing
Yeah, yeah,
what most Californians don't do to travel. Big shout
yeah,
out to Shane.
yeah.
By the way, shout out to Shane. Like a quick rundown of this week's. When I say this week, it's the week I'm recording, so keep in mind I'm talking about March 14th through to the 20th.
Sure.
Great episodes came out, all of them, but ones that kind of really stood out for me. Shane Lamont's Bass Fishing Thumbs with Greg Blanchard and Eric Siddiqui. That
Yep.
was a great episode. A great interview, by the way, from Jimmy Skinner with Eric Siddiqui. So check that episode as well. I
Yeah.
think Jimmy Skinner did a wonderful job, a great job interviewing Eric Siddiqui. Great information. I love that episode. So shout out to Jimmy Skinner and Eric Siddiqui, interviewing the winner of this year's Bassmasters Kayak Series Championship. And a fun episode from Matt Souders and Brad Hicks with Smalley Talk podcast and Action
Yeah,
brand.
the Chegan brand.
That was something like that. I the pronunciation.
Ashigan, a Chegan.
Something like
I saw Josh Sharenko the other week when I was down at the Indianapolis Boat Show, and it's a Chegan is the way he pronounced it. So he's a good dude, man. Those guys are doing some cool stuff for sure.
They are. Great podcast and great job of branding themselves. Kind of really thinking outside the box. Fun episode by Brad and Matt Souders. And Matt Souders, new member of the Paddle and Fin family. Welcome to the family, Matt. Great job. Big shoes to fill from Joshua Eldridge, but
he'll never fill those shoes.
Nah, but in Matt,
he's got to become a trash panda before he can do that.
Wishing, by the way, our trash panda the best, Brad Eldridge. But anyways, let's get into some fun stuff, man. Let's talk a little bit about tournament fishing for 2022. Lots of great things to talk about, and some other stuff that kind of like is not going, I think, as we expected. First of all, when we talk about the highs of the highs, I mean, where do you start? Hobie BOS selling out their last tournament. I think it was, I should have that information ready, but it sold out in 9 minutes. And we're talking about a tournament in June.
Yeah, yeah,
That is crazy.
yeah. Well, and I know if I understand correctly, like they also have waiting lists. So if somebody
Yeah.
backs out of the tournament, which this was something interesting I was thinking about when we were talking about doing this show, because I saw a guy post somewhere. I don't know if it was on KBN or where it was. But it was in regards to that, like dudes on the waiting list, and gas prices are going through the roof, and you're seeing a lot of anglers start to get a little scared of traveling across the country to fish some tournaments. So he's like, "You guys can start backing out now, so I can fill my spot. I'm ready to go." You know, so I found that interesting. Like they still got backup lists, so they could still, say they have 10 people back out. Can still, fill those spots. And I think you only have till a certain time to back out, so that way they can fill those spots. Excuse me, but super cool, man. I mean, Hobie's gained a lot of popularity for sure over the past couple of years. AJ's just freaking crushing it. Obviously, he's got like a lot of support from like the KBN group and things like that, man. And they're doing things right, and they're just continuing to grow it, which is awesome, man. It's I mean, other than like the national championship, right? Like, when have we seen a field of 200 anglers? You know what I mean? So it's pretty badass, when you step back and take a look at it, compared to like 3 years ago or 5 years ago or even 8 years ago. You know what I mean? Like the whole tournament scene in general. So yeah, huge kudos to AJ. I know our friend John Rapp just had AJ on his podcast, Rusty Hook podcast, talking about the Hobie series and things like that. But that's one thing. Like AJ fished tournaments for many years,
Mhm.
saw some holes that needed to be plugged and filled and or restructured, and he's done really good things, man. I got nothing but good things to say about AJ and what he's
Yeah.
accomplished, man.
No, definitely. What you have more experience than I do on this, and you know the business side of it. Kind of like growing the paddle and fin brand from 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 the beginning.
Sure.
And also you're a great tournament angler yourself. You nothing to sneeze about there.
I don't know about that, but
No,
all right.
you know you're good at it. So one of the things that I really wanted you have you on the podcast is because you know both sides of it.
Sure, sure, sure,
What
sure.
do you feel? Is there one thing that you can point out that say this is why Hobie BOS is killing it out there?
Um, they haven't had any issues really. I mean, they've had a few hiccups for sure. I think their biggest issue that they've dealt with so far was Ben Gate 2020. I think that was. But other than that, like to run pretty flawlessly. Guys are getting paid out in a timely fashion. Um, which was a big complaint from a lot of anglers, fishing other trails and stuff like that. But I think it's just AJ's got it dialed in where it's a well-oiled machine, so to speak, and I mean that's the biggest thing, man. Guys don't want to have to deal with headaches after they've spent 8 9 hours on the water. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Um, so I think the fact that they've stayed on top of things and have chunked away at that little by little and making sure that everything goes off without a hitch. It's that that's the biggest thing. Um, if you have a nice smooth run tournament, anglers are treated with respect, and you treat their time with respect as well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they've done a pretty fair job, I think, at promoting the anglers that fish. They got a guy running around taking photos of people. Seen many people, take those photos from the Hobie website, I think it is, or the Hobie Facebook page, and
Yeah.
where they post those images and repost them. And I think that's the biggest thing. Like, from the tournament's angler standpoint, like, everybody's out to win. Everybody wants to succeed. Everybody wants to gain some some form of financial sponsorship so they can do more of that, right? And if you're getting recognition from one of the biggest uh kayak fishing trails out there, that definitely helps. You know what I mean? I think you are seeing more of that coming out of KBF
Hmm.
now, but I don't want to steer away from Hobie right now, but I think that's just it, man. AJ's got things dialed in, and he makes things smooth, and um, I think he's been really well at if he's faced with a problem or an issue, um, he knows how to handle it and handle it professionally, and I think that's the biggest thing,
I,
So
I agree.
yeah, and you can't really say anything bad, right? Like, when you sit down and think about it, like I said, like there's been some very minor hiccups, like nothing compared to, you know, some of the things that like Bass or KBF have experienced, right? But on the flip side of that, before Hobie did their series, KBF was the one making the mistakes and learning from them.
Yeah, I
And
agree.
also at the same time, they're not only learning, but they're teaching others like AJ. Hey, don't make this mistake. Don't make this mistake. You know what I mean? So, it obviously AJ has paid attention over the years of, what's worked, what doesn't work. All of AJ's friends, I think for the most part, are kayak tournament anglers, right? So obviously he's having conversations with guys. Hey, what do you like about this? What don't you like about that? You know what I mean? And he's got a pretty good group of folks to go to with questions or thoughts or ideas. And I think he gets feedback from all types of anglers and then kind of takes mental note and adjusts from there, I mean, I don't know that 100%, but if I was AJ and seeing the success that he has had running the Hobie series, I'm pretty sure that's what he's doing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, he's again, like we said, he's used to be a kayak tournament angler and a damn good one at that.
Yes.
When he was doing that, and you know, he knows what he wants to see, right? He knows what he wanted to get out of that, and so on and so forth. So he's kind of dialed it in and made it for the kayak anglers. I mean, you know, um, yeah, they have some sponsors and stuff they have to appeal to, right? That sponsors that help out their trail, but I mean, in the interim, like Hobie's a pretty big organization. They got sailboats, they got the kayaks, they got all that. Hobie's got some money, right? So, I mean, the fact that you don't have to play into a bunch of that sponsory type stuff like maybe KBF does to help fund things, because he doesn't have a backing like Hobie, so to speak, probably makes his job a lot easier. You know what I mean? So I don't know, man. It's a game of give and take. Like you got to do this to get this, and but I mean, too, like these bigger trails, they work with visitor bureaus, things like that. They get funding from that, and I think AJ's done a really good job at working with some phenomenal areas that host some pretty amazing fisheries. And one thing I always think about, because I think it wasn't last year, it was a year before when AJ was showing Iconelli the schedule for the
Yep.
upcoming year, and he was like, "Oh my god, like you guys are going here at this time of year and here at this time of year." Like I think there's been some pretty good strategy put into place on their part as far as scheduling at being at some of these lakes at prime time, like
Yep.
where you're going to see some really big bags of fish put on the board. So,
No, I agree. And it's interesting. You touched on something. Um, and it's when you look at the media side of it. Obviously with KBF, Chad Hoover has the KBF social media, which is big. He's
sure.
always constantly putting cool videos, albeit pretty much more about himself than anything else. But regardless, he has a huge following in the social media for KBF. Bassmaster obviously has their media, which is you know juggernaut when you consider they have Bassmaster magazines, which already has come out with a few articles, headlining kayak fishermen.
Hmm.
They also have, they actually Dwayne, Wally, and John Stewart both were like running a live show during the whole event at the last two. And then you look at Hobie, and they do have a social media presence, but actually the Hobie BOS page just started. What, a couple of weeks ago when I started following, they only had like 200
What
followers.
what page? Because like I know, I think pretty much since the start of Hobie doing the actual series, like AJ always did like updates throughout the day. What
Yeah,
page was that being broadcast on? Was it the BOS page or was it something else?
were you talking about the? I might have said that wrong. Are you talking about the Bassmasters? I was talking about Dwayne Wally and
Oh no, no, no. I'm talking about Hobie. Like AJ, that's one thing too. I
yeah, he
forgot to
does.
mention. He does updates throughout the day, of the leaderboard,
Yeah,
who's
yes,
currently in first through whatever, and what the conditions are at the body of water, and
yeah.
he talks about that kind of stuff. And that's kind of what we do, at Dale Hollow. But we also have guys like chasing around people on the lake and getting video footage and stuff like that, and then we'll stream that back on those updates. But that's totally besides the point, man. I'm getting off topic. But AJ's really good about doing that, the updates. So I didn't know that Bass was doing those kind of updates, kind of
Oh, they're
live
doing it
shows.
live. Yeah, live show throughout the whole lines in and lines out, which I thought is good. I don't know if they start at lines in, but throughout, most of the day they're gonna be live. John Stewart and should a huge shout out to them. But now goes back to my point. You have all these companies, KBF and Bassmasters, who are really starting to pop out content. In case of KBF, they've done it for a few years now. Then you have Hobie BOS, which just started their Instagram page. Their Facebook page is just really AJ McCordick doing a simple,
Yep.
update, I think like 2 or 3 times a day.
Yep.
And that's it. Like the Instagram page per se doesn't even promote or it's just starting, but a year ago they weren't even mentioning the Hobie BOS event. So it's kind of interesting how they haven't really relied heavily on social media like it's trend like that's what every business now is driven by social media now, and Hobie BOS is just barely gotten started and still they're selling out at a historic rate. That's the crazy part about it. They're not even investing that much in doing the whole social media thing, and yet they're selling out in 9 minutes for a tournament that's 4 months from now. And I mean, it's really gone into word of mouth. Now, you did touch something back when we started the conversation, and I actually talked to Jeff Malott about this on the Toledo Bay, and I asked him, how much do you think the KBN is, their backing is helping OBBOS? And Jeff Malott was humble about it. He's like, no, 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 this is AJ. We promote it, but this is really AJ. But I really think he was just being humble about it because I really think the KBN group, um, their backing, I think, really helps out their promotion. Now, I've heard people say, "Well, I'm not going to a Hobie BOS because of KBN backing, still not KBN," which I think is stupid. You go to Hobie BOS if you like fishing tournaments and if you like fishing the Hobie BOS. You don't stop going just because of a backing by a group of people that some of them are not even fishing. So that's another point.
I don't
But
think it's necessarily that they're like backing it. I think it's more that they're talking about it more than the other trails. You know what I mean?
yes, well, that's what I meant by backing. Yes,
Yeah.
they're throwing their back in and not just promoting it, but saying we prefer this. We think it's the best.
Sure.
We
Sure.
love
Sure. Sure.
it,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and kind of pointing out other, you know. Yeah, and granted, I think when they, and not to stay away too much from it, they did have John Stewart and Dwayne Volley for KBN to come up to the show. That did not work out well for KBN at all. But that's on KBN. Like I mean, that's not on KBN. That's on Bassmaster. KBN gave you their platform. You had a chance to come in, make an impression, and you fell flat on your face. Um,
I didn't see that or watch any of it. I just saw some riffraff like after it happened. Like what all happened there? I like refresh my mind. It's been a minute because I know
not
that was like beginning of this year, wasn't it?
the feeling, and let me tell you what, because I don't want to
Well,
come over
I
here.
know there was the one tournament, right? What is that in Oklahoma where like
Oklahoma, yeah.
kayaks can't go like what 150 yards offshore, and that dude was like, "Well, I'd prefer all kayak tournaments were like that." And
Yes.
yeah, yeah, I remember. Yeah,
It
that was the wrong thing to say, Mister Stewart. I will just say that. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
and
it's almost like he was treating kayaks like a bunch of little kids. You know what I mean?
yes, like a
And
stepchild.
yeah, like we're like we don't know what's good for us or something. Like, are you freaking kidding me, dude? Like, I don't know. I kind of laughed at that. I remember. I think I may have seen that or seen a clip of it or something like that. I just kind of shook my head and was like, "Well, there goes that," you know?
It's bad when the tournament director cannot identify, or the kayak anglers are not can identify themselves with the tournament director, or have opposite views of what the vision of the tournament director. I'm not speaking bad about John Stewart. The guy is great.
No,
He works for
no.
Bassmaster. He knows what he's doing when it comes to boat tournaments. But maybe, just maybe, kayak tournaments is not in your
Well,
wheelhouse. And if it's not, then it's one of those things where you're not really bridging that gap here, and you're not doing yourself any favors. You're a great
well,
dude and all that, but it's just not working out.
you
That's
know
just
me, dude.
not
I like
working
to
out.
play devil's advocate, right?
Yeah.
So, like on the flip side of that, right? Like, I think Bass legitimately sees an opportunity with the kayak world.
Mhm.
Um, Kayak tournament fishing is still eh, I personally feel is still in its infancy stages.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like this isn't fully developed. You know what? This Bassmaster Classic, what that was like the 50 or 60th something. I don't know. I don't follow those statistics very well, but I know it's over 50 years. But
Yeah.
they've been doing that for 50 years. They've had the same issues, same problems, throughout the years as the kayak fishing world has, whether it be KBF or Hobie or Bass Nation. You know what I mean? They've had some issues over the years, but they're still young to it. I don't think they fully understand the concept of kayak bass fishing or fishing for bass tournament wise from a kayak. But what you can say is year one when they had that first championship
Hmm.
to just recently the championship, it's gotten better, right?
Yeah.
Like, uh,
Uh, some things have gotten better. Some things have gotten worse. I would say.
what was worse?
Well, the lake that you mentioned, picking that lake, and then the explanation on it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm talking about the champ. I was just
Oh, the
specifically talking about
championship.
the
Oh no, it has
championship.
gotten better. Yeah, way better. Yes, I
Um,
agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, that lake was kind of a stupid move. Like, I agree 100% with that. And Granted, I get it. They're trying to run those events side by side with the big boat tournaments. So I'm sure it was one of those things where they had a deal worked out, and that's it too, right? From the business side, I'm sure what it is they have something worked out with that visitor bureau, county, whatever it is, to bring the boats in, right? And then I imagine, and I don't have any insider information on this, but I would have to imagine like Bass probably goes, "Hey, we also have this kayak division. We could bring in another 100 anglers, which is more tourism dollars for your county. What lake you got for us?" Or something along those lines. Um, it makes sense to run those side by side. It kind of sucks because the big boat guys are going to get the better lake, right? And we're
Mhm.
getting whatever's left over. But on the flip side of that, man, it's a starting point. It's a stepping stone. It's one step closer. Like I watched Greg Blanchard's video today from the actual tournament, and just seeing the excitement on his face
Yeah.
and him talking about like he was blown away that he even made it into the top 10. Um, but like the fact that he got to stand on that stage and talk about his biggest passion, in life, which is kayak fishing for bass, like he's like, that was a once in a lifetime
Definitely.
goal that I achieved. You know what I mean? And how many of us like, whether you like what bass is doing or not, any tournament kayak angler would give their left nut to be in Eric Siddiqui's spot, hoisting that trophy on a Bassmaster Classic stage.
Oh, I agree. I
You know what
agree.
I mean? With it, and that's whether you like what Bass is doing or not. Like if you had the opportunity and Bass was like, "All right, we need you to fish this championship," like most guys are gonna be like, "All right, let's go," So I mean, it's one of those things, man. It's still growing, right?
Yeah.
Like
Well,
just like Hobie's still growing, KBF is still growing. Like,
I don't know
it,
if what Bassmaster is going through right now you consider growing because they're reverting. They're going. I mean, their numbers are going down. So I mean,
yeah, I
it's
I
going,
think
but could you honestly say it's growing when it's actually getting the attendance is getting worse?
I think it's growing in the fact that it's getting a little bit better. I think the attendance factor is the schedule. Um, at the beginning of the year, Jimmy Skinner and I were talking about fishing a bunch of events, and there was a few bass events that really intrigued me, but the events only make sense if you live in the deep south or the deep southeast. You know what I mean? They're all down there. There is nothing up in the Midwest, the Northeast, things like that. So, and especially right now, you look at gas prices and things like that. Like, let's face it, like Harris Chains this weekend. That's I think a 19-hour drive for me and probably 2,000 miles round trip, I would say. With like driving around the lakes and stuff like that at 15 miles a gallon. You do the math, That's
Yeah.
just fuel to get there and back. Now you're talking about food, lodging, you know, bait, or not bait, but tackle, entry fee, things like that. Like that adds up really quick.
So
Um,
what do you think? We talked about, I asked you, what do you think is the biggest reason why Hobie BOS is blowing up? Now, let me ask you a reverse question. Why do you think is the number one reason? There could be several reasons. And I think you mentioned it already, it could be the schedule, but other than the schedule, is there any reason do you think that Bassmaster Kayak Series is actually trending down right now? And we can't, and I'll tell you
um,
before you answer, we can't say gas. The reason why you can't say gas is Hobie BOS just sold last week when the gas prices were all time high, when the barrel hit $200. or close to
Sure,
two hundred
sure, sure,
dollars.
sure.
They sold out in 9 minutes. So we can't just say it's gas, and we can't say it's COVID either, because that's thankfully not gone, but kind of like working
Um,
its group.
I no, no, no. I hear what you're coming, where you're coming from, and what you're laying down. I think it's a number of things, right? Like definitely the schedule and things being not spread out enough. Just because it's basically what like Texas, Florida, Oklahoma, and I guess they were just in South Carolina,
North Carolina, yeah.
and are they? I don't even think they're going to Tennessee, are they? It's like
Uh,
Alabama or Georgia or something.
they only have like 5 this year, and
Yeah,
I had that pulled up. Let's
but
see.
it's all
Yeah,
in the
Sandy
deep South,
Cooper,
right? Um,
Georgia, Ufala, Bokem Bowl, and Chickamauga.
Whereas Hobie's spread out more.
Oh,
Um,
that's Hobie BOS. My bad. I'm looking at the Hobie BOS. My bad.
Hobie's a
Go ahead.
little bit more spread out. Obviously, Hobie is his stayed true to the kayak game. I think what's really hurt him is the first 2 years. They made a lot of mistakes, and I think now guys are stepping back, waiting to see how they make things better before they jump back into that arena. Um, it'll be interesting to see what happens, man. I mean, I have faith in them. You know, it's either gonna kick back up and they're gonna do the right things, or they're gonna fail miserably and drop it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And kind of to correct myself real quickly, it's I was reading the Hobie BOS, but it's actually Harrison's Chain, Florida, which is coming up this weekend.
Yep.
Um, Grand Lake, Oklahoma, Smith Lake, Alabama, and Pickwick, in Tennessee. That's to me the one that you need to watch out for. Pickwick should attract a lot of anglers. If that tournament doesn't get 100 anglers, Bassmaster Kayak Series is in trouble.
Yeah, and that's pretty much like Tennessee, Alabama, Georgia border, isn't it?
Yep.
Pickwick, somewhere over there.
Yeah.
I mean, again, like that shit's all down south, like deep south, whatever. But I think I like to answer your question honestly, I think like I said, a lot of guys were turned off by some of the things that happened in the first 2 years of the bass. And some of the more serious anglers are focusing more of their attention on Hobie. Um, I think a lot of guys like because there was a big stink upheld for the first 2 years about how much money Bass was taken out of the prize pool
Hmm.
um, to pay for their expenses. Get it? Um, Whereas Hobie, none of that stuff is really taken out of the prize pool, and they got some juicy payouts. The nice thing about Bass is they pay down to what, 30 places or something like that?
Yeah.
So, you're not getting as much up on the top end, but if you have an okay tournament, you're at least going home with a check to cover some of your expenses, which I think that was adopted from the big boat world. They realized how much money those guys were putting out, and for them to not make a dime, like you were seeing a lot of guys dropping out of the big bass, elite series and things like that because they couldn't make a dime even with an okay finish. You know what I mean? So um, I think it's cool that Bass has adopted that. Um, but I think a lot of guys haven't realized that, you know what I mean? Even in the interim, you know, these tournaments take money to run them. They take a lot of staff, a lot of energy, things like that, man. Like I can tell you that firsthand from running events.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And again, like Hobie's got the financial backing of their actual boat company. KBF operates that off their sponsor dollars in their
Hmm.
membership fees. And that's something too, right? Like Hobie doesn't have a membership fee. KBF and Bass do. I know there was a lot of confusion with like some of the local Bass Nation stuff because like I know when they were doing it in Wisconsin, like you had to have like 3 different memberships paid, then pay your freaking tournament fee. By the time you paid that, like there wasn't you might be lucky to break even, if there wasn't a good turnout, just on membership fees, you know what I mean? So, I mean, again, like game of give and take, until and it's sad, right? Because obviously uh Bass works with a lot of sponsors that are outside of the fishing world.
Yeah.
And I've said that for years. I know other guys have said that for years. Until you get those companies interested in our sport and in contributing funds to our sport, because I know everybody thinks like the fishing industry is this huge multi-billion-dollar industry and there's just money flying around everywhere. It's not necessarily the case. Like, yeah, there might be multi-billions of dollars of sales of fishing equipment, boats, batteries, rods, reels, line, lures, but the margins aren't there like what it is on other products. You know what I mean? So like,
It,
and not only that, but like there's only so much of that money to go around. You know
and
what I
the other thing that comes to viewership, like you see a lot of
Yeah.
kids play basketball and baseball,
Yeah.
but what really brings in the money is viewership.
Yep. Yep.
Those events
It's
being
your
played out on
reach.
TV. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
those events playing, commercials, sales of commercials. We're not going to see that in the bass kayak fishing world until at some point either live streaming. We right now with technology like cable TV's becoming, it's really already obsolete. So now
Yeah.
like live streaming, it's just which company, live streaming company, is going to invest in saying, okay, we want to bring kayak fishing. And granted, I've seen curling, ice curling, whatever they call it in Canada,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
on ESPN2, or I've seen domino tournaments. Like, come
Sure.
on, I love
Sure.
dominoes, but watching it is boring as heck.
Right.
Kayak fishing can, and it should, and technology. Once technology makes it easier, you can't have a camera guy on a kayak like you do on a boat. But technology is there where you can hook up with some type of GoPro or action camera and live stream it. Once it's there, I think, and the cost to operate that is more feasible, I think you're going to see, and that's where you're going to see the big sponsor money coming. Now, I wanted to touch on something because you nailed it on the head when you said, and we have to understand that Bassmaster is a different entity than Hobie BOS.
Sure.
I've mentioned this on my podcast with Marvin Forte. Hobie BOS, they're they're not trying to make money out of the tournament.
Right. Right.
They're
Right.
trying to build their brand. When you say kayak, a kayak for fishing, the first name that comes up is, oh, a Hobie. Oh, you got a
Yeah.
Hobie.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Kind of like Coca Cola with soda pop or whatever you call it in your region. They want to be the brand that identifies with this product, and that's what they're going. So they're fine with just breaking even. That gives more flexibility on AJ McWhorter.
Sure.
Um,
It's more of a marketing strategy on their
exactly.
end than anything.
Yeah, with Bassmaster is no, we need to make money because our job is not to make kayak. Our job is to make money out of providing you a service for a
Right.
tournament.
Right.
So
And it
that's different. How going to that is because I've talked to Jimmy about that, and he makes great point. My point of view on this is the consumer in this case, in other words, the tournament angler, doesn't care about all that. Like you and I understand the business side of it. A tournament angler or a guy that weekend warrior that says, "Oh, a Hobie BOS is coming here to Texas. I want to fish it." He doesn't care about the business side of it. He's just going to look at which one provides me a better service. By service, I mean better enjoyment. And keep in mind, the enjoyment that you're going to get on the water is going to depend on your talent. What they do is the host. I think Hobie BOS does the best job of hosting a tournament, and that comes with the experience of AJ McWhorter than um more than anything.
Sure.
Bassmaster now has what you mentioned, that their media reach, which, like you said, Eric Sadiki, Mark Pendergraft, the last two winners, can really benefit from it. And you would think like the big names, like the quote unquote PKA or National Trail Anglers, I like to call it, the guys, Christian Fisher, Ross Snyder, Guillermo Gonzalez, Matthew Scotch, all those guys and girls that travel the United States to go to a tournament. You would think they're saying, well, I live out of this. Winning a Bassmaster Open or a Bassmaster Kayak Championship is gonna, lift me over there when it comes to getting sponsorship. And yet, you notice the kayak, the last championship. Take nothing away from Eric Siddiqui, because I'll tell you right now, I don't care who else was fishing on that tournament. Eddie Siddiqui was going to win it. He guy was on a mission. He
Sure.
was due. He's one of the best anglers. I take nothing away from Eric Siddiqui. Congratulations once again. Having said that, a lot of the big names, they for whatever reason, they either didn't put the effort to qualify, or they did qualify, they just didn't want it to, they didn't feel it was worth making that trip to participate. And that's concerning for Bassmaster, because that's the one thing they got above KBF and above Hobie, is to attract those national trail anglers, and yet they're not making it. It's 91 anglers on their national event, which is capped, I think, at somewhere like 300 or 250, and only 91 show up. That's concerning.
Yeah, I know. I know there was. Yeah, I mean there was a lot that were qualified through state qualifiers. Um, Sorry, I'm gonna pull up who was there, because I know um there was
There were
quite
some
a
big names, yeah,
few big
but
names, like
but
Russ
some
Snyder's was
notable, yeah,
there.
was not it, but some notable
Mark
names for me.
Edwards,
Yeah.
who won last year, right? Um, oh, I was like, wait a minute, this shows Eric Siddiqui in second. That was for day one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, Russ Snyder's was there. Just scrolling through. Adam Petroni was there. Mark Edwards, David Burt, Russell Johnson. Those guys all travel around.
And
Rolando Nandine,
great angler,
Robert
by the way.
Weaker, um, Casey Reed. Yeah, he
Guillermo
caught a
was there.
giant, dude.
Yeah.
Um,
I think Matthew Scotch was on that one as well.
Iconelli ended up in 30th place. Lance Burris,
That
he
when that I'm gonna go down a road that I don't want to go
Mark
down.
Pendergraph, or Pendergraph won last year, right? Not Edwards?
Margaret Pendergraph won last year.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. I messed that up. Cody Milton was there. Drew Gregory.
Oh, Drew
Uh,
Greger owned Drew Greger. Yeah.
yeah, he bailed on the day two because
And he could have. He might have. He
Guillermo
might have
was
won it.
there.
Yeah.
Guillermo
I
was
think.
there.
Yeah, he was there. But there were.
Uh,
I mean, I'm not saying all the big names were missing, but some notable names were missing.
Richie McMichaels was there. I'm just scrolling through. Brad Case was there. He did not have a good tournament.
Let me ask you this, because this is really interesting. Um, Mike Iaconelli was kind of like the spokesperson or the spoke angler for the tournament after the tournament was done, the day
Sure.
before the release. He wasn't in the top 10. I understand Mike Iaconelli's Mike Iaconelli.
Right.
I'm honestly did not like that idea. Let me tell you something. I have the utmost respect for Mike Iaconelli. I love the guy. I love his podcast. I love his shows. I love his personality. He ended up 30th. Why is he being the spokesperson? At some point, why isn't if you? I would have thought, okay, well, if he got into the top 10 and you want to make him like the spokesperson, where he make the video where he thanks Bassmasters and all that, okay, fine. He's in the top 10. He earned his right. But why not have Mark Pendergraft, who actually won the tournament, be the spokesperson? Why don't have one of the guys that represents the kayak fishing community? Because we all love Mike Iaconelli, but a lot of the hardcore kayak anglers don't see him as the spokesperson for the kayak fishing community. And that's why I get it's a depth tone that, and maybe I'm nitpicking, but and I love Mike Iaconelli, but again, why not have Mark Pendergraft, who actually won it last year, be the spokesperson?
I'll tell you why. From a business standpoint, right? You go up to any random person fishing from the bank and say, "Hey, who's Mark Pendergraph?" And they'll be like, "I don't know. Who's that?" And then you ask him, "Who's Mike Iaconelli?" Like, "Oh, that
I
crazy dude that fishes out of a boat," right? So, and this is something I've talked about too. We have to figure out bridging the gap between the boat world and the kayak world. And whether you like Iaconelli or not, like, he has been a huge advocate for that granted, he works with Hobie. Great. He fishes Hobie events. He's fishing bass events out of a kayak, and he really gets it, right? And he's trying to show the rest of the world like this kayak thing is something for everybody.
Yeah.
You don't have to have a checkbook that's got an endless amounts of money in it. You know what I mean? And you know, I mean, from Bass's standpoint, right? If they're trying to elevate this kayak division and make it into a profitable thing, continue growing it on their end of things. Um, I mean, I wouldn't choose anybody else. I mean, to be honest, I
But
mean,
how do you feel? How do you think that sits with the kayak fishing community, which is the ones that are
well,
going to take part in the tournament in the future?
here's the thing, right? Either anglers need to grow up and deal with that fact and know that this is actually probably going to be better for them in the long run if they have a big name like Mike Iaconelli representing them and trying to bridge that gap rather than somebody who nobody in the fishing world knows outside of the kayak world, and you're going to keep staying in the same place. Again, it's you got to look at it from a growth standpoint, like going back to what I said at the beginning, and you kind of over 100 with minus California. Hobie's selling out every event. Bass is suffering a little bit. So if you want to grow that, like, are you going to grow it through, you know, Eric Siddiqui or Mark Pendergraph getting on a microphone on a live stream that nobody in the rest of the fishing world knows? Or are you going to grow it better through talking to a guy who's been in the bass fishing industry for years and people know and people love? You know what I
I
mean? Like, I get what you're saying. Like, it's not
Mhm.
fair to the kayak anglers, but at the same time, man, like, that's the thing. Like, we got to quit being petty with ourselves and look at the bigger picture. You know, like, one of the biggest things in life, man, like, I think kayak anglers are too focused on right now. They're never looking at 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. They're worried about right now, not next year, right now. And I
I
think that's the
agree.
biggest problem, man.
Well, here's my point of view, and you're right. I understand the whole the hype man. That
What
and
they could
again,
have done, what they should have done.
mm,
I wouldn't say what they could have done. What they should have done is had Iaconelli and Pendergraph or Iaconelli and Siddiqui.
yeah.
That's how you bridge the
Well,
2 together. You
they
know what I
haven't.
mean?
I said the winner wasn't announced, so I understand it wasn't Siddiqui. Well, I don't think it was announced because he was that kind of like the table
Oh,
or
yeah, 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 it was like the
yeah,
day before the awards. Right, right, right.
yeah.
Yep, 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 yep.
But
But I
but
think
here's
you
my point of this. I totally get what you're saying, and you're not wrong. Problem is, it's not working. Hobie BOS doesn't have a face to their franchise, and yet they're selling out. AJ McWhorter does a great job of like, this is about you guys, the anglers. I just, he understands it. He
sure.
understands that this is not about him. This is about growing the brand. So he kind of stays in the backstage, shows up here and there to show that there is somebody in charge. But when it comes to giving um, the lion's share of the glory, he steps back and lets the anglers get the attention, which is what the great tournament director does. That's why I think Hobie BOS is one of the.
It,
But that's the point about it is you keep trying to promote it, it's not working, and at the same time, it's not that I'm being petty about it, but at the same time, you want to see your kayak anglers, Mark Pendergraph, the ones that have started this from the beginning, come up and get some recognition versus somebody. And again, I love Mike Iaconelli. He is awesome. He's a great guy, but I'm not saying anything bad about Mike Iaconelli. But at the same time, this is somebody that had a stage and a brand already built. All of a sudden, jumps into kayak fishing, and all of a sudden, he's the spokesman for kayak fishing. Where it's like, what about all these people that have been growing this from the beginning, that are doing this, that have actually won a national championship? That's my point of view. Am I nitpicking? Yeah, I'm sure I'm nitpicking on this. There's a lot more important things going on in the kayak fishing that can be addressed. But that's a little part of the things that you're like, I understand what they're trying to do, but it's not working. So at what
sure.
point do you say yeah, you're trying to promote it, but it's still going downhill. And one of the things that I wanted to mention, and I wanted to edit the video and kind of play some clips of it. It was going back to that interview with John Stewart and Dwayne Wally on KBN. One of the things that John Stewart said was he was disappointed with um, the attendance for last year, and
Sure.
that he now as Bassmaster they're expecting to average from 200 to 250 this year. That's what they go, or at least they want it to trending in a direction where they feel comfortable that it's going that way. It's obviously trending in the
That's
wrong
not
way.
happening. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Pickwick is what's gonna make it or break it. If Pickwick doesn't, I don't think they're capped out to sold out. Maybe they are at 250. But if Pickwick doesn't get 100 anglers, then it's not. Then I think this is where Bassmaster is really gonna. It's like we ended the year on a bad note on a lake that everybody wants to go to. Like it's the bucket list of everybody.
Sure.
When you look more inside the numbers, like you can go back and say, well, they got 150 on Lake Fork this year. They did. Look deeper at the numbers, and you realize they had about 40, 50 anglers less than they did last year in Lake Fork. So even their biggest attendance is still a step down from what it was last year, which was Lake Fork. And people can say, well, it was in February. Well, yeah, a week later, Hobie BOS sold out, and it was in Toledo Bend, which is border of Texas and Louisiana, with a
Sure.
lake that is on very few people's bucket list. So, when you look at the deep in the numbers, it's like even the big event on Lake Fork, even that was underwhelming when you look back at what happened last year.
Well, I think part of this year too was the weather. There was a lot of talk about the weather going into that event and what was coming up. It was the same way in Florida too. With KBF and the 10 Invitational and the first two Trail Series and Pro Tour event and whatnot. Like, because like we're dealing with that right now with our paddle and fin series, right? Like
Yeah.
we're working with these two local clubs, and Ryan Milford, he's like, our local club guys, they don't sign up for tournaments till the night before. They're waiting for the weather, waiting to see, what the family's got going on that weekend, so on and so forth. Like a lot of folks wait till the last minute to sign up for kayak fishing tournaments. And from the business side of things, right? Like I'm gonna yell at you kayak tournament anglers out there because like
Oh boy,
you
here
guys
it
will
goes.
you guys will bitch and moan that you don't get your payouts right away. Well, if you don't pay your entry fee till 6 o'clock on Saturday night, right, or Friday night, that money's got to be transferred out of PayPal into a bank account, and then that takes business days, not weekend days. So like a lot of that stuff happens where money gets held up, but that's why you see Bass and Hobie saying this is the deadline. You have to sign up by this, so that way those funds are in the bank, so that way they could pay you out right away. So when you're fishing your local clubs and you're like, "How come I'm not getting paid out the day of the tournament, bro?" Well, that's because you waited till the last minute and the funds aren't available because you waited till the last freaking minute. You know, Besides the point. Sorry, I go on a
Dropping the
tangent
mic,
there.
yeah, it's valid. It's valid.
But
I can't argue with you on that one. Totally
but
fine.
I think, with that respect, like a lot of guys knew that cold snap was coming through Lake Fork and like guys were like, I don't know if I want to make like for me, I think that's 14-hour drive. Like, do I want to make a 14-hour drive to go freeze my ass off? Or do I stay here in my cozy little house and watch from afar? Like I there could be a number of different reasons. Like I like Fork is always going to be a hit, and I think that's why it was well over 100. I think some of their other lake choices and times a year, like again, talking about, Hobie, like they really planned it out and they're hitting great lakes at great times of the year. You know what I mean? The only one that I question for Hobie's schedule this year is the Wolf River. Like I have a feeling that tournament is going to be bad. Like
Bad in
bad
attendance or
bad is
bad in
bad as far as fish caught. I don't think you're going to see a lot of giants coming out of there. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a lot of short fish. It's not known for big fish.
You think it'll sell out at any point when you look at the schedule? Is
I
there
I'm
any tournament that they're not selling? I mean, at this point,
I
they're selling out in 9 minutes.
if there's one that they don't sell out this year, it'll probably be that one. If they don't sell out, like I know I've seen like a lot of guys are like, "Why the hell are you going there? Why didn't you go to lacrosse?" And you know, fair enough to AJ, like he's trying to change it up. Like you see a lot of kayak anglers like we fish the same lakes every year over and over and over. Drew Gregory talks about that a lot. Like change it up. Let's go to some lakes that like we don't know, we've never heard of,
Mhm.
like a lot of these well-known tournament anglers, they've been to all these lakes that are on the schedules every single year. They're going to their same little honey holes every year and cashing checks and kicking ass and taking names, but um you do have to change it up. Like I would have rather seen him go to like Sturgeon Bay, but I know that or Green Bay as a whole. But I know with that's huge water. Like you get a blow day, you could have 4 to 6 foot waves. You're canceling the event
Yep.
or postponing it. Which, thankfully that doesn't usually happen in kayak events, like we're usually pretty fortunate with weather. I don't think they've had any delays or postpones with Hobie events. I know there's been a couple over the years with KBF events where it was just too dangerous to send guys out in kayaks. But,
Well,
that's the game.
yeah, and Hobie BOS has more. You're gonna see that in Hobie BOS because they branch out more. You see them going to Utah. You see them going to California. You see them going to Colorado. You see them constantly putting tournaments out there. This goes back to Chad Hoover's personality. It's a big old big personality. That's the way he runs KBF. It's always out there trying to reach as much as he can, and kudos to him. It works so far. So it's that they're going to be prone to that kind of thing. That's just the nature of the way they run the business, and that's fine. That's going to happen. Um, Hobie BOS, their operation obviously it's a lot smaller. Going back a little bit to the Hobie BOS, we really you know give kudos to AJ McWhorter. Now it's interesting because I think this is going to be this year is going to be AJ's McWhorter defining moment. How does he deal with this situation? Which, by the way, it's a great problem to have. Selling out in 9 minutes, but a lot of big names and tournament anglers that are competing for the AOY, like Brian Howell and others, missed the cut. Like they couldn't get in. Which great news for those weekend warriors that you don't have to
Sure.
deal with now with those big names. Kind of did you a favor by jumping in early, which now sets the tone. Now that from now on, all those tournaments are going to be sold out in the first 24 hours because you can better believe everybody now that's looking at the next tournament once the registration opens, they're going to have their alarm and they're going to jump in. Like there's no more. Forget about putting a deadline. That thing is going to be sold out. Even if the Wolf Rib, I think it's going to be sold out in the next 24 hours because now everybody cannot afford to procrastinate. He broke the cheat code. This is what's gonna happen. This is what's gonna define AJ, the way we handle it. If it goes wrong, this is we live a life, a world, especially with social media, where it's what have you done? You're gonna be remembered for the last thing you did. Um,
Yeah,
and
that's unfortunate.
that is the reality of it. And I have full faith in AJ McWhorter. What do you like? You have experience running the Paddle and Fin tournament, Paddle and Fin podcast, and fishing tournaments. What do you think is the solution for this dilemma? I think Brian just shut off his mic.
Sorry, man. I'm having issues with my mic. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's interesting, man. Like you said, man, it's unfortunate. Like if something goes wrong in a tournament and they like the community crucifies AJ, that's
Which
messed
they
up, man.
shouldn't.
Like
Which they shouldn't, by the way. Mic issues. Well, Brian is having mic issues while Brian gets that fixed. That's one of the things we want to touch about. It's not that I wish that AJ McWhorter, It's not that it's fair if AJ McCorder gets crucified, like Brian Schiller said. I think if anybody deserves credit, it's AJ McCorder. Like he got himself into this situation by running the best tournament out there, the one that everybody wants to buy in. So he kind of created his own monster. So he's a victim of his own success. So we gotta get him some slack because right now this is as unprecedented as any had other maybe than Chad Hoover with building the KBF brand has gone through. It's one of the things like he really has to sit down and figure out what is the solution for this. So there might be some things that we might think it's a great idea. Doesn't work out, he might have to change it up again. If it does, we give him credit for it because honestly, this is kind of like his own success. Are you still there, Brian? Or
Yeah, yeah. Can you
okay,
hear me?
cool.
I
I can
just
hear you
switched
perfect.
my laptop audio, but yeah, man, it's one of those things, man. We're all human. We all make mistakes. Things happen. Like people need to get over that. And like perfect example, dude, like Chad Hoover. Has he made mistakes? Absolutely. Has he owned his mistakes? For the most part.
Yep.
Absolutely. And kudos to KBF because we haven't really talked about them at all tonight.
Hmm.
Like, you know, they're doing really good things. And Chad knows he's got an ego and he's kind of stepped back a little bit. And, his wife was announced as taking over the company and things like that. And, you know, she's always been a huge part of it. And she really helps things run smooth. And, Chad's been known to throw a bone in the plan from time to time. And I think he realizes that. And, now he's just a face. You know what I mean? Like, I got nothing against Chad, dude. Like I just hung out with Chad one weekend a couple weeks ago down at the Indie Boat Show. Like he's a really nice guy and he
Yep.
really cares about the kayak fishing community, whether you like him or not. Like it's something he's passionate about and it's actually something that saved his life. You know what I mean? And that's a whole nother story and I'm not the person to tell that story, but it's one of those things, man. You got to learn from your mistakes and grow from it. And I think KBF has learned a lot from their mistakes and they're growing from it. AJ, fortunately enough, hasn't had any hiccups really. Like we said, couple minor ones, one major one, maybe a couple small ones, but like he's lived and learned from that and he continues to get better. If we all work together and make things better instead of having this divide. If there's one thing, right? You look at all the top anglers, they fish all three major trails. They don't say anything bad about any particular trail.
Yeah.
They fish them all. And that's good for the sport. If we all
Yeah.
did that, we'd be much further along than having this divide and this shit talking between Hobie's better than KBF or KBF's better than Hobie or Bass sucks because they don't do this or do that. Like what we did here tonight was like constructive criticism, I think, and we
Yeah.
offered solutions to that. Now, if you have a constructive conversation, that's great. But if you're just going to go out there and just straight up talk shit, like that doesn't help anything. If anything, it makes things worse, in my opinion, whether you like it or not. But you know, from somebody that's coming into the sport, right? And the first thing they hear is like this person talking crap about this trail and another person talking crap about this trail and how this isn't right and that isn't right. They're like, the hell am I getting involved in?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas if they're like, man, I like fishing this trail because of this, and I like fishing this other one because of this, and like instead of always talking about the negatives, let's focus on some of the positives. You know what I mean? But one thought that ran through my head was like, now that Hobie has sold out 200 anglers for all these events, do you foresee next year they bump that to 300 anglers?
That's gonna be interesting because I know AJ McCorder values more quality over quantity, right? And like I said, Hobie BOS is not really trying to make a profit out of this. They just want
Sure.
if the tournament is run well and it gains the reputation like it has of being a great tournament, run well, with quality, then that's gonna translate into the brand. People are gonna say, okay, one thing translates to the other. If we provide a great service in the tournament, people are gonna associate that with a product. Versus if we run this tournament really crappy with a lot of complaints, then that's gonna dilute our name brand. So I think they're gonna say, no, we're gonna stick with quality. Now he has to work on something. And I don't think like Hobie BOS is not trying to muscle their way out, and they're not trying to muscle Bassmaster or KBF out of
Right,
out of their
right, right.
territory.
No, I
They're
agree.
happy.
I
They're
agree.
happy with the diversion of it. What I don't know what the answer is, and I mean, I can brainstorm, and I probably the stupid. Probably if I tell this to AJ, he's like, "That's the stupidest idea," and I would trust that it is the stupidest idea because he knows the business better than I do. I think at some point I've seen it on the comments. I think it's a good idea to explore. I don't know how it will work, but I think, and I'm crossing my fingers, that this is going to be the beginning of the Elite Series. And the great thing about it is, if it is, it because it became organic. What I mean about this is the popularity of the Hobie BOS tournament got so big that it created a problem, and the solution to the problem was we now have to make an Elite Series. That I think is the next step into evolution. Just like Bassmaster, MLF, all those have that Elite Series. That's going to be the next step in our evolution of the sport, and it keeps going. Once there's that Elite Series, now it becomes more marketable for TV or streaming audiences. I don't know how it will work. And again, I don't dare to give the ins and out of it. AJ McCorder knows this, but I get the feeling that something in the words going to be like, okay, well now we're going to have a qualifying series. And
True.
if it does, that's going to be amazing for the simple fact that it wasn't forced on the kayak fishing community. It evolved to it because of the popularity. And I think that's very, very important to recognize.
So, do you think they would run like Elite Series along with their normal Trail Series? Is that
I
what you're
don't
saying?
I don't like that. I understand what KBF is doing. I'm not going to criticize it.
No, no, no.
They
I'm saying
know,
like
yeah.
they'll have two separate trails. One would be Elite. One would be their normal Trail Series, which would qualify guys going up into the Elite.
Again, I don't know how it will work. I'll be stepping out of my comfort zone and really opening myself to being something of an idiot by commenting
Come
on something
on.
that I know. But I think I'm not going to give you the ins and outs because I don't know. I really don't know. I'm just saying if
Why don't
they
you
do
know?
that.
I came here to find answers from you, Armando.
No, you're the expert on this. That's why I
I'm
brought you
not,
here. I do the
I
questions, you do
am
the
not an
answers.
expert. I am not an expert. I just
What?
I
How do
try
you?
to
How do you?
approach it with an open mind and I,
So how do you think it's solved? Is it just as simple as
well,
going
I mean,
from
you're gonna have
100
to.
to 300?
I mean, I agree with you. Like because they're selling out, like they could potentially do like an Elite Series, and maybe that's
And that's
you know
complicated, by the way.
whoever qualifies for the TOC gets put in the Elite Series, whatever. I don't know. Um, but you're going to have a way to feed that Elite Series, which would be your normal Trail Series. So now you're talking about twice the work. And I get
That's
where you're coming from as far as quality over quantity. But also, from a business standpoint, like if the demand is there, should you go for that? Like, could they potentially sell out 300 anglers per event? I don't know, but it sounds like those waiting lists are like 50 people long, you know?
easily, easily 50 people.
So why not bump it to 250? Like, if you can handle 200 anglers, you can handle 300. Like, that's my opinion. Um, and not only that, but, that gives you more ammo and firepower to go after these spots to hold your tournaments. Yeah, I'm not bringing 200. I'm bringing 300 anglers this year.
Yeah.
So we need this, this, and this. Let's talk. You know what I mean? Because you need that support, that local community support when you're hosting big events like this, and the fact that you're having 200 plus anglers coming to their town, you're buying gas, you're buying food, you're buying lodging, you're buying tackle, like that's huge for those communities and some of these lake communities, you know what I mean? So I don't know what the right and wrong answer is. The only person that knows is AJ McCorder.
And
So
assuming
good luck,
he
AJ.
hopes he knows, right? And
Hey,
again, I would cut him some slack if the first two or three ideas fall flat, because it's
sure.
unprecedented. This is
Well, and
unprecedented.
that's the thing, right?
Nobody
Like,
has had this problem. No tournament director has had this problem, unfortunately.
yeah,
So
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. Could I see an elite series forming out of the Hobie series? Absolutely.
that would
Could
be
I
awesome.
see could I see the Pro Tour actually becoming something with KBF? Sure, if it was done right. You know what I mean? But again, like that interest has to be there, right? Like that's KBF's struggle is, a lot of anglers have been vocal about you can't run this along with your other trail series event.
Yeah,
It's just a
I'm not a
side
fan of
pod,
it.
right?
Yeah.
It needs to be completely different. And they haven't listened. And they have high hopes for making that grow. Well, guess what, dude? Like, if you don't listen to the anglers, they're not going to fish it. Like,
Yeah.
but on the flip side of that, too, right? Devil's advocate from the business side, now you're talking about a whole nother slew of tournaments. How do you run that? How do you financially make that logical and so on and so forth? I think the biggest thing is like, and this has been talked about too, like amongst the kayak fishing community, like you look at the big boat guys, they pay all their tournament fees up front and they have to commit to being uh to all those events. And I think they get one buy, like where they don't have to be there, or one wash for their AOI or whatever it may be. But like that's how you get anglers to commit. It's either like man up, bro, or this isn't happening. You know what I mean? So like from the KBF standpoint, like that's been talked about a lot. Like if you want to run a pro series, run it separate, make all these anglers pay their fees up front. So that way they're committed,
Yeah.
right? Their money's already in the pot. Now they just have to go and fish. But having it run side by side with the trail series, that's what they did in 2019. Did it put money back into my pocket because they did it that way? Sure. But on the flip side, like I distinctly remember me and Kurt Smits talking about it on a podcast, right? Like he did one in Ohio and I did one, I forget where it was, but like he took like third or fourth in the regular trail, but won the pro tour, right? I did
Who's the
one,
real winner? Yeah.
and I think I took like seventh or eighth in the trail, but I took second in the pro, right? Like, so does that make sense? Like, not really. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, yeah, it was
The
great for my pocket, like covering my expenses, but at the flip side, like they treated the pro thing again, like promoting the anglers and things like that. You want to have a pro tour, treat it professionally, right?
Not
Is
as a
more,
side gig. Yeah.
you know. Instead, it was like, oh yeah, we're going to talk about all the trail winners, blah 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 blah. Run through all that, and then it's like, oh yeah, these guys kind of placed in the pro tour event. Like, what the fuck, dude? Like,
Hey, it's a family show.
whatever, dude. Like, you know,
You're the one
you
editing this.
want to treat it. You want to treat it like a pro thing. Treat it professionally. Like it was just like sweeping the pro thing under the rug. Well, that's where they lost all the momentum with their pro tour when they came out with it in 2019. Not only that, but running it coincided with a trail series, so it was just like an extra pop. And whoever could afford it could fish it. So
Yeah, if it's a side pod, you can't. It loses its glamour of being called a
yeah,
pro.
yeah,
I'm the pro, but I came, but I, but I came in like 10th on the Unmuter side of the tournament. Well, how is it that you're a pro? It doesn't make
Well,
sense. It,
that's
it,
just
it,
it, right?
it
Like,
dilutes the product. I get the
well,
whole consolidating cost, but it dilutes the
right.
product.
But you got to start somewhere, and you got to have a way to support it. And
Yeah.
you know, I was one of those guys, right? In 2019, that was my rookie year with KBF, and I fished the trail and I fished the Pro Series, every event that I fished. And do I think I was a pro? Absolutely not. Did I do okay? Sure. But, did I have a right to fish the pro? Not necessarily as a rookie, but, I saw it as an opportunity because I'm like, well, if the opportunity's there to get in it now, and that's a way for me to get in that when I was wanting to pursue more fishing tournaments from a quote unquote like national angler, so to speak. Like I was going to take advantage of that, right? I was going to get in that because if it took off, at least I got in when I could.
Yeah.
Instead of making it like this huge task to get in later. You know what I mean? Is that the right way to do it? No, not necessarily. Did I believe in the fact that that pro tour could take off? Absolutely. So I'm going to support it. So, I mean, there's many different ways to look at it. Like, I know, like, KBF has put out some standards on how they're going to qualify for next season and things like that. And I think that's really good, and they need that. Do I think they'll meet that angler mark? I think they'll be lucky if that number of people fish the Pro Tour this year.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So, with that being said, like, because I fished one this year and I totally bombed, maybe I'll be able to fish next year, But is that right? No, not at all. That was one of the things that really turned me off in 2019. Like, some guy fished one trail event, and because he did well in the one event that was really close to his house, he automatically qualified for the division championship. And it was like, wait a minute, dude, I put in all this work and effort, and I could have just taken the rest of the season off after fishing the first event instead of like traveling around, wasting money and doing this crap. Like, people feel cheated, right? Like, because there's some of that money that's held back and that goes into the pot. But again, business side, you have to do that, if you want to make that championship pot appealing at the end of the season. So that way anglers commit to fishing because they know they have a chance at $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, then you got to do that. But it's a game of give and take, man. You got to take it or leave it, whether you like it or not. And I'm not bashing that. Like, I totally get why they do it. You know what I mean? But if you want that as a kayak angler, some kind of elite or pro series, when it comes up, you can't be like, I don't want to fish that. But for the past 2 years, you complained about it. Well, now it's here. Somebody's offering it to you, and then you don't fish it. Like, what do you? Your complaints are now non-valid. You know what I mean?
You do, damn if you don't, kind of thing.
Right. Like, and it doesn't matter who's running it, KBF, Hobie, Bass, whoever it is, right? Like, if there's an elite series out there or a pro series out there, go fish it. That's the only way it's going to take off, right? Like, whether you like it or not, like, it is what it is. But until those anglers that want that start participating in that, and that's the thing, dude. Like, you look at the Kissimmee event, all the most well-known anglers from around the country fish that pro tour event. They're trying to support it because that's what they need. That's what they want, is that elite level tournament. So they're going to fish it. Like, jump on board, boys and girls. Like, if you want that in our sport, you got to do it. You got to support it, and you got to help out. And if that's not what you want, then go fish whatever you want. Nobody's saying you have to be an elite or a pro angler, but if you are one of those guys that wants that, go fish it, go support it. I hope it does come to the point, like, MLF and BASS, where you got these multiple elite level tournament series. Like I could see KBF having their pro tour, Hobie having a pro tour, Bass eventually doing that, and building off of that. You know what I mean? And the three, like right now, MLF, BASS, two completely different things, right? But like, it's great for the sport of fishing.
Yeah.
Some people like seeing a guys catch shitloads of fish. Some guys love seeing a guy come across the stage with 5 giants. It appeals to more of the masses, and that's what we need in this sport.
Yeah.
The
I
more we
agree.
make kayak fishing appealing to the outside world, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah, and I agree. And this is what this episode is all about, building
Yeah,
a
man.
brand. Yes, we talked about the good things and the bad things. Obviously, the Hobie BOS, there's not a lot of bad things you can say about it. It's only going Bassmasters, not a lot of great things you can say about it, other than the national championship, which again, congratulations to Siddiqui. We just want to talk about it and see where we go from here, right? There's a balance of saying, growing the sport. There's how do I let me see how to I'm trying to think how I should word this. There's a fine line, right, between being constructive criticism, which is what we're trying to do, giving our opinions, and thinking what could be and what should be. And then there's the bashing and criticizing and bad mouthing, which is what we don't want to do right here. We want to grow this sport. We want Bassmasters to be the biggest bass kayak fishing tournament because it has the biggest reach. So if they can raise their level to be the biggest name in kayak bass fishing, that's awesome. As long as they raise the level, not that
Sure.
WBOS and KBF lower the level kind of thing. We wanted to grow. That's what we want. We may talk about things that need to be better, but it comes from a good place. We all want it to succeed, and that's what we all think it's the best. Now, if it turns out that Hobie BOS is going to be the brand name for Bass Tournament Series, kayak fishing series, and that's great. That's wonderful. We're in great hands for the future. And same thing with KBF. There's three great products. Some of it's trending the right way, some of it's not. We want it all to be trending in the right way. If you love Bassmasters, go fish it. If you like KBF, go fish it. If you like Hobie BOS, go fish it. If you like the All American Kayak Series, go fish it. Go fish what
Yeah.
you like and
Yeah.
what makes it better. And if there's this opportunity to you to bring constructive criticism to the powers to be, go ahead and do it in the right and professional manner, which is what we want to do all here. Anyways,
And
Brad, go ahead.
and not only
Closing
that,
thoughts. Yeah.
I just want to throw out there too, like, you talk about growing the sport. Like one of the biggest things you could do is talk to people about what you love doing. You know,
Yep.
but I see it firsthand working boat shows, and I'm sure you see it down in Texas. I know Texas has got pretty big scene, but like a couple weeks ago, being in Indiana, like people coming through that fishing show and seeing fishing kayaks, and they're like, "You guys got tournaments out of these things, and you can win how much money?" Like what? Like people don't know how big kayak fishing has become. And the more and more people we educate and the more people we bring into the sport, um, the better off it's going to be. And it's going to continue to help grow things. Um, if you get a chance to do a seminar, work a boat show, talk to people about it, like I encourage that stuff, man. That's what helps grow the sport of kayak fishing versus going out and fishing a tournament. You know what I mean? Like, um, the more that common folk know that aren't familiar with kayak fishing, the more they're going to be interested in getting into it. Whereas right now, it's kind of like a very small knit community, and it is growing, especially with what the pandemic did and forcing people to get back outside. But just continue educating folks, get them in kayaks, get them outdoors, get them fishing. They'll fall into the tournament scene if they love it as much as we all do. I look forward to seeing all three, series continue to grow. And not only that, like you said, the All American Kayak class or kayak series, they're doing great things too, man. And
Yeah.
and I think they're kind of like that little brother that you're not watching right now, and then next thing you know, they're bigger than the rest. You know,
Yeah.
they're doing really good things. The guys that run that, Tyler Cole and Joshua Booth, two really good dudes. Love the kayak fishing community, and they're doing good things in the Midwest. And I can see those guys getting big as well, man. So, just go out, support these clubs. Don't talk crap. If you don't like something, talk about it in a
Constructive way.
reasonable manner. Don't just be like, "Oh, screw these guys." Like, come up with solutions to the problem instead of just complaining about the problems. You know what I mean? And I think the more feedback they get, the better off these trails are going to be. And there's a proper way to do it. Like, I hate bashing, a trail or a brand or something like that. That's just a huge turnoff, man. Like, be constructive about it. Support these people. They work really hard, whether you like Chad Hoover or not, or AJ McCorder or Hobie or BASS. Like, all three of those entities work really hard to put on some really good events. So support those guys and help them too, man. Support them. Those guys work hard. That's their life. And it's cool to see the sport continuing to evolve. And I look forward to the future, man.
Definitely. Brian, thank you so much for having on the podcast. I know I've had you for an hour and 36 minutes. Your work week has been crazy. So I
It's
really
all right, man.
appreciate you taking the time, man.
Dude, and that's
Really,
just it,
really
right?
much.
Like, it doesn't feel like an hour and 36 minutes. It feels like a 10-minute conversation that you and I had about what we love, dude. And
Yeah,
that's just it, right? Like, we all love talking about what we love, and it's good. Thanks for having me on, and look forward to the next one, brother.
yes, definitely, man. For those out there listening, if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Go check out the sponsor, Douglas Rock. Go to douglasoutdoors.com. Check out their full lineup. Also, shout out to our paddle and fin, Jack Gadgets, Pelican storage. Who am I missing?
Eastport Marina. That's it.
Eastport Marina. That's it.
Yeah.
So if you're gonna be on the water, please remember, wear your PFDs. If you're gonna have a beer, crack a beer open, please do it responsibly. Stay safe. Have a great day, everyone. Enjoy your weekend. Peace.
See you.